Welcome to Have You Seen This? The podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten cinema. All discussions will be spoiler heavy. You have been warned.
Welcome to Have You Seen This? I'm Jennifer Albright, and I'm here with our co-host, Tim Heydrich.
Yeah, long time no see, huh?
Yeah, Tim's been in Sydney getting a film degree. Barely got out with his life.
Yeah, well, I got a film diploma, let's say that. Whether I got the education, that's for a Sydney court to decide.
It's a good story, and we'll be talking about it soon, because it actually is really tragic, but we'll get to that. In the meantime, for Tim's first episode back, I have a very special guest. The man voted most beloved of traditional Catholic Twitter. Matt Christman of Chocolate Trap House. Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Hi, guys.
So, Matt, the reason I had you on was you suggested a really fine film for us to discuss. One that's little seen for good reason.
One that's a part of my past as well, but go on.
Yeah, I felt frankly a little sadistic suggesting this because it is one of the most unwatchably terrible films ever made.
Inscrutable, yeah.
Yeah, but it really does represent a specific moment in filmmaking. That kind of the post-Tarantino 90s. It really shows how low the bar was for people who wanted to rip off Quentin Tarantino after Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction came out.
It really is at the point where kind of new cool indie cinema kind of disappeared up its own ass, I feel.
Yeah. The film we're referring to is 1996's Mad Dog Time, written and directed by one of the greatest fail sons in Hollywood history, the great, incomparable, brilliant Larry Bishop.
That's Mad Dog Time, aka Trigger Happy, because
Trigger Happy. Yes.
Yeah, because there's the point where it came out on VHS or DVD or whatever, and they're just like, look, this movie's name is Bad News. We have to trick people into renting it by calling it something else entirely.
Yeah.
And this really is a good crystallization of the concept of a fail son, because there are few better examples of when somebody so undeserving has been handed so much.
Well, when we're watching it, I think Jen summed the movie up best as an ocean of wasted talent.
It's incredible. The cast in this movie is astoundingly dense and good. And you got to figure it comes down to the fact that this guy is a scion of Hollywood royalty. His dad was Joey Bishop, who was one of the comedy hanger-on of the Rat Pack. And the movie has this incredible cast: Gabriel Byrne, Jeff Goldblum, Richard Dreyfuss, Burt Reynolds.
For some reason, yeah.
Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan.
Even character actors, the guy who played Bly from Briscoe County.
Yeah, Billy Drago.
Yeah, Billy Drago, Gregory Hines, Billy Idol.
Yeah, Billy, I'd forgotten about that.
Alex Barkin. And the thing that unites all of them is that every single one of them turns in the worst performance of their career. Which is astounding, especially when you consider guys like Burt Reynolds, who've been in a million terrible movies.
Yeah,
this is still his worst performance.
It's weird to think that he did that, and then I don't know what 1 or 2 years later he's in Boogie Nights.
Yeah, this was right around the time when he had a career resurgence because of Boogie Nights, and the same thing for
Not because of striptease.
Shut the fuck up. No, the same thing happened for Diane Lane, who's also in the movie. Her star had somewhat fallen after her being kind of hot in the 80s, and then she came back with what's the Adrian Lyne movie where she fucks a French guy? Richard Gere's in it.
I should know that.
I forget. Anyway.
Primal Fear. No, that's with Edward Norton.
Unfaithful.
Yes, and then that led to a kind of career renaissance for her. So she came out of Mad Dog Time, I think, relatively well.
People are just like, her. We got to do something with her.
Yeah, this poor woman.
Yeah, everyone else already had been established in their careers, and I guess, just doing this as a favor, which the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and man, we slogged through that road, didn't we?
Yeah, and, then Ellen Barkin, poor Ellen Barkin, she doesn't come across quite as...
Have we seen Ellen Barkin in anything since? Was that the point where she's like,
She was in... the last thing I think she was in was Ocean's 13, where she gets slipped a Mickey and wants to have sex with Matt Damon while he's wearing a big fake nose.
That's comedy, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. She's had the fate of most actresses who've tried to continue once they've reached a certain age. After the Logan's Run. Button starts beeping up their hand.
Renew.
Yeah, because some actresses can kind of work past that, but others don't fare so well. Although I think she married some rich investment guy.
Now married to an entertainment attorney in Sherman Oaks. Sorry, go ahead.
No, she married some rich investment banker type guy and walked away with $20 million. So maybe she doesn't have to act. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's really the best escape plan you can have when you're an actress.
Yeah, I should have been an actress.
Well, you and me both. So
before we get a little too caught up, this is the hard part. This is usually the point in the show where we give a little bit of a capsule summary of the movie.
Oh, where to start?
How the fuck do you explain Mad Dog Time?
Well, I would say someone's like, hey, this movie Goodfellas is really good, and someone's like, okay, all right, Goodfellas. Like, do you want to learn anything about the mob, or do you want to go outside or talk to another person? No, I got this. I'll just flip through some Vogue or some GQ or something. And let's see, I'll just look around okay, let's see, Jack Daniels, okay, I'll do that, or champagne, yeah, okay, these are all cool things. Smoke a cigar, oh man, this thing writes itself.
It's basically those memes, those swag is for boys, class is for men memes. It's basically that as a film. Just, hey, remember when dames wore nice dresses and guys dressed up in suits and they drank martinis? And they sat in rooms and they traded patter, and then one of them shot the other one. No, that was never a thing. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, it was. It was totally a thing. Okay, but you're the son of the famous Hollywood comedian.
Because again, the world in Mad Dog Time, its economy is based around there's a gravedigger and a nightclub.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a nightclub.
Really feels like post-apocalyptic. It's almost like these are the last people on Earth.
No, it really
They're
does.
in these two nightclubs, and then they just slowly kill each other until there's only a few of them left.
And I wonder if that was originally part of the conceit because of the weird opening of the film.
Oh, yeah.
It opens like a fucking Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
With a galaxy on a star field, and it's like, hey, one day in another dimension.
Everything was cool.
It was joyful. It was
full
of joy.
There's another Earth. It's a swinging Earth. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I feel completely unmoored already, but go on.
I just had a thought. What's his name? From Family Guy. He should be. Seth MacFarlane should have been involved in this.
See, this is why.
Oh yeah, that fetishization of 50s culture, totally.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And this is why I was telling Tim before we started, Sinatra, as much I actually love Sinatra's music, but Sinatra's been kind of ruined for me by guys like this, guys like Seth MacFarlane who kind of appropriate the look and this notion of a kind of super cool masculinity that maybe only existed for 3 people, one of whom was Sinatra.
Yeah, it's the same kind of idea that's I'll wear a trilby and I'm automatically cool.
Yeah, the Grant J. Kidney style of...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If Grant Kidney made his own film, it would look like this. No question. Except the pregnancy would be faked.
Oh, yeah, because that's what bitches do.
Because you can't trust women. Yeah, bitches be lying.
It's a movie for fedora wearers the world over.
Oh,
yeah.
Fedora the movie. Now that I would watch.
Oh, yeah.
So we still haven't really described the plot, though.
Because you can't. God. It's an impossibility.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
All right, let's lay it on us.
Okay, so Jeff Goldblum plays like the right-hand man of this mob boss, played by Richard Dreyfuss, who had checked himself into a mental hospital months ago, and while he was away, Goldblum had an affair with Dreyfuss's girlfriend. And now he's coming out of the mental hospital, and everyone's like, uh-oh, you're in trouble now. But then the whole movie after that is different people in rooms talking to each other until one of them shoots the other one, until it's just Richard Dreyfuss and Jeff Goldblum and Larry Bishop as this super good hitman who had been hired to kill Jeff Goldblum and by Richard Dreyfuss, but also hired to kill Richard Dreyfuss after he killed Jeff Goldblum.
It's a classic story.
The classic tale we love to know. And then there's also Ellen Barkin, who's the sister of the girlfriend, who's played by Diane Lane. They're in the room too. And literally at the end of the movie, they're the only people left alive.
That's a good summary, because like the important part being they're in the room too.
Yeah,
that's literally how the movie starts off. Is oh yeah, Henry Silva's in the corner doing nothing.
Being Henry Silva.
Here's Michael J. Pollard. Oh, never mind, we just killed Michael J. Pollard.
Yeah, like they had classic Hollywood henchmen just to like burn off, just waste, because they had so much star power in this movie that was completely and totally wasted. Yeah,
and again, it goes back to the whole Larry Bishop fail son thing, where it's like you get these things just handed to you, and then they cease to have any kind of meaning or significance. Where it's like, yeah, I can get whoever the fuck I want in my movie. You know?
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
You think that you would do something useful with it is the thing.
Well, the useful thing that he did is that they said his amazingly hilarious, witty dialogue.
Oh, the alliteration and yeah,
like he's trying to do like a smart aleck, like Tarantino thing, because the only movie, I mean, sure, he was Larry Bishop. He was, hey, I'm Joey Bishop's kid over here. I want to make a movie. But the fact that this was the time when literally anybody's shitty knockoff Tarantino script got made, that definitely helped it get made.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I got snappy patter dialogue, but it's the stupidest, most like childish, idiotic attempts at like being clever
it's like,
that I've ever heard.
Like, can you have like subliterate wordplay? Like that's my question.
It is the closest thing to that. It's the closest possible thing.
It's also one of my favorite bad writing tropes is lines that are literally meaningless delivered with great earth-shattering importance. Like there's a point where Larry Bishop's character says, you know what my philosophy is? To hell with goddamn everything.
Oh, you're deep, Tony.
I know, I'm like, well, it really shows in your filmmaking.
I think I enjoy, though, in the last scene, because there's been so much of that, like, you know, sort of stylized, you know, pitter-patter to kind of dialogue. And then at the end, when Ellen Barkin runs in, and she's like, I've had it with all this Nick, Vic, Mick shit. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, I hear ya.
Yeah. That's a nice bookend, because one of the first quote-unquote jokes in the movie is delivered by Gabriel Byrne when he says, Vic is sick, Mick. Vic is a sick prick, Mick.
Oh, you feel bad for Gabriel Byrne, like.
Yeah, well, he is embarrassing.
Yeah, this is absolutely.
I felt so bad for him. Yeah. Like I'm looking at him, I'm like yelling at the screen. I'm like, you were in Miller's Crossing.
Yes.
Kim said that at one point. He was like, "Hey, remember I was in Miller's Crossing?"
Yeah, it's like, dude,
like that is again
horrible.
And I don't remember the exact timeline, but I would assume Miller's Crossing came out first.
It did.
And this
85 or 86?
Oh, it's even older than that.
Oh, like 91.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just to see this as just a dim reflection of that same kind of dialogue, because the dialogue in Miller's Crossing is like so like sharp and stylized, and
it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's like you're Tom Reagan. What are you doing? This is and that he. Oh God. I mean, everybody's bad. Like
Yes.
Goldblum is catatonic.
It's the most Goldblum performance. Just like with uhs and mumbles.
it's
and...
the yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, yes. I mean, it seems like the way to get out of this thing with your dignity intact is just to commit not at all. And so that's what most people made as their choice, and that was a smart pick. God love him, but Gabriel Byrne decided to really commit to it, which was absolutely the worst thing he could have done.
Yeah, and again, like I say, like you kind of cringe watching it because you're like, oh, Gabriel Byrne, he showed up to do a job, and damn it, he did it.
Yeah, it's like, I hate you right now, but God damn it, I respect you.
Yeah,
you're earning whatever paycheck you got for this thing, which is probably scale because once again, favors.
Yeah,
exactly. Probably.
Favors for the fail son. Everybody, let's get together and pretend that this is an actual script, so that the fail son doesn't get mad at us and start crying.
Like, there was a time it used to be enough to throw him a nice birthday party, but now you got to indulge him in this.
Daddy,
yeah, it's
I
true.
Make a movie.
Yeah, like how would you hire a clown?
It's like Larry, Frank Sinatra sang at your 10th birthday party. You do not deserve any other favors from Hollywood.
Now, I have a question, and it's the first of many, many, many questions. Is that Gabriel Byrne's actual accent?
I think it's close to what it's Irish. He's doing an Irish accent.
It's about as Irish as Orson Welles in Lady from Shanghai, which is like some kind of weird Irish cartoon.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I think that because he was going so broad,
and he was,
that I think that his accent almost broadened, maybe even subconsciously.
Yeah, at some point he's just like, let's go, just go full Lucky Charms on this one.
Yeah. Like there was no other way to be.
So that's one question answered. Now my question though is because I was already aware of this movie, but I don't know how what sadistic notion caused you to suggest this.
Well, it's because I was one of those insufferable white boys whose cinematic imagination was basically shaped by Quentin Tarantino. By seeing those first couple of Quentin Tarantino movies way too young.
Oh, yeah.
And it's basically like internalizing that entire approach to film as like the ne plus ultra. And so I spent the rest of the 90s assiduously watching every Tarantino knockoff I could get my hands on VHS.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, like when I was 14, I thought the best movie ever was Reservoir Dogs.
Absolutely, right. It blew my mind.
Yeah,
and I saw Pulp Fiction at the theater, blew my mind.
Yeah,
and so I saw Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, directed by Kiefer Sutherland, which is also terrible, but it might as well be Pulp Fiction compared to this. I saw Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
Oh God, I saw that one too. We must be about the same age. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, just so overwritten, like one of those movies. It's just the guy. You could hear the writer patting himself on the back for how clever it was, and yet.
That's got Christopher Walken in it, doesn't it?
It does. It's got Andy Garcia, Christopher Walken, Jack Warden, Treat Williams. It's not, and compared to this, it's fucking genius. So I watched all of those movies.
Yeah, because at least in Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, like at least the characters have like clear motivations. Like there are reasons that things happen.
Yeah, I mean they're like these absurdly overdrawn caricatures, and their dialogue is all just hilariously stylized and unrealistic. But they also are people, whereas these characters in these movies are, for the 5 minutes before they die, just names that people obnoxiously rhyme with things, and then they get killed.
Yeah, the movie is very fascinating in its structure in that literally nothing builds on anything that came before it.
Yeah, and that characters are so disposable. And the thing that, again, I don't understand from a writing perspective, everyone in this movie seems prepared to die like they've done it already. Because it's just like, oh, well, hey, another night sitting behind, an oak desk and, I may get shot between the eyes.
That's just it. Every scene is a guy walking into a room where there's somebody who wants to kill him, and then they're like, hey, how you doing? And then they sit down across from each other, and then they talk for 5 minutes, and then they do basically a sit-down quick draw.
Yeah.
Which is really not a staple of the mob movie.
It's weird because I was like, if you want to direct a Western, direct a fucking Western. This isn't exactly the end of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly here,
Yeah, I could maybe give some credit in that he was trying to do if you try to do like a mishmash of like a Western showdown with like a mob kind of veneer to it, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where I kind of wonder if at a very early formative age, Larry Bishop was erotically frightened by a desk with a gun on it. So he developed this weird fetish where he just couldn't stop writing scenes about people getting killed by guys sitting behind desks.
And the rest of the movie is just kind of the masking tape that holds the rest of it together. And just like, we need to get them in that basement so they can talk a little bit and then shoot each other from behind a desk.
Yeah, like, is that a place where mobsters go? Like airplane hangars with living room sets in them?
The gun basement?
Yeah, there's just a big gun basement. Yeah, it feels like an airplane hangar. And they all just go there to hang out and talk. Like, there's one scene where Kyle MacLachlan is talking to Gregory Hines for 10 minutes. And they're like, oh, we're going to kill you. It's like, why would you talk to this guy? You're going to kill him.
And the flip side of that too, the nonsensical notion of it is not just Kyle MacLachlan, telegraphing to Gregory Hines, "Hey, we're going to shoot you in a little bit, but hear me out." But then there's also the flip side of that, which is Gabriel Byrne, like his character, knowing that that Richard Dreyfuss's character is insane, and then like talking shit to him endlessly at his own debutante gathering party, and then again Burt Reynolds, like his character, coming up to talk shit to Richard Dreyfuss again before his hitman shows up and kills him, ending the scene. And it's just like, people really want to insult someone to the point where they're going to get killed for it. And I'm like, no one is that stupid.
Well, yeah, and like that's how Gabriel Byrne dies.
Yeah.
Where they're at a party for the returned Richard Dreyfuss, who's the boss, remember.
By the way, which is a detail that they hammer on every 30 seconds for the first half hour of the movie. Hey, Vic's getting out tomorrow. Yes, I fucking know!
And then...
I believe that he says Vic's coming out. Either him or Goldblum say it like in consecutive lines at one point early in the movie. He just says it literally over and over again.
If you made a drinking game out of that, you would end up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he's like, he just decides to start roasting his mentally unstable mob boss in front of a huge crowd on stage with a fucking microphone. And then he gets killed. Holy shit.
Yeah.
What a surprise.
And again, like, he doesn't quit while he's ahead after he gets shot twice. No, 3 times before dying. Because he gets shot twice, like once in each leg, gets shot a third time, and then he goes down. And and I think I made the crack to you about like, oh, and by the way, I'm not dead. And then sure enough, like 30 seconds later, he's up again.
Yeah.
The only thing that explains the behavior of any of these characters is that they want to die so that they're not in the movie anymore.
I mean, truth be told, the thing that you'd mentioned earlier about it being like they're the last people on Earth, and maybe there is a good concept in that, but I mean, with like the galaxy stuff before, I mean, I could put like maybe like a Twilight Zone kind of spin on it, in that they are people who are like dead but not, and that this is kind of like a purgatory of sorts, which is why everyone's so nonchalant of being killed, because it's like, look, I'll just go on to better things. I know I'm not alive.
Yeah, it's like
there's no way these people value their existence.
It's like a purgatory for characters from a first year film student's first screenplay.
Oh god, yeah, I know. Copyright 1997.
That, like, part of my obsession with Tarantino was that while I was watching all of these movies and having my cinematic world shaped by it, I actually tried my hand at like writing a screenplay for a crime movie.
Was it about stolen heroin? Like everyone else's?
I think someone stole some drugs at some point. I don't remember. I didn't write that much of it. I only really remember like a couple of scenes that I finished, and they were all like in the Tarantino style of before a violent thing happening, some guys talking about trivialities. I think the first scene I wrote was like someone explaining like the ketchup factor. That's all I remember. I can't tell you what that meant, but like he was explaining what that meant. Like, that was a class. But I guarantee you, if I could find it, it would be better than this movie.
Well,
that's the sequel
I have no question.
That's the sequel to the Peanut Butter Solution, the ketchup factor.
yes.
Yeah, I guarantee you that was better than this.
Well, I think that you had a larger vision beyond someone gets shot behind a desk. I think
and characters make obnoxious rhyming pairs about their one-syllable names.
Yeah, it's so witty and clever. It makes me want to kill myself.
Now, what I thought, I don't know if this how this came up in the suggestion, but I'm glad that we're covering this episode because I actually, like you, I was a fan of indie cinema in the 90s, so I had actually seen this in the theater. I paid money to see this movie.
Holy
bastard.
Yeah.
Hashtag respect.
Yeah. Well, it was because, just as you were there to consume all, like, independent Quentin Tarantino derivative cinema at the time, I was kind of like, yeah, well, let's, they're opening the floodgates for independent cinema, and I want to be there. I want to, like, see what all this new stuff is, coming down the line, and I want to give, all these new movies a chance. So, like, okay, Mad Dog Time, this one looks like a cool independent movie. So I went and saw it with a friend, and, like, we just both walked out there like, man, we got to stop doing this.
I'm really surprised you made it the whole way. That is surprising to me because it's just punishing. It's so inert.
Yeah.
There's just no energy to it. It's like it's all taking place in a coffin or something. And it's just nobody has any, like, every scene, it's the same. They're all shot the same way with these gliding, like, interstitial shots of, like, whatever glamorous nightclub they're at. And then just people sitting at a table exchanging the worst dialogue in history.
Yeah, it's the George Lucas method of directing where you just sit people down.
Yeah. Exactly.
Shot,
it totally
two
is.
shot.
Yeah. Like, can you just
So, like,
please say my magical words for me? I can hear them read back to me, my genius.
And, like, thinking back to it, like, I actually tried to rewatch it a little bit before we talked about it, and I had to skip around a little bit. It was just so bad. But I was like, did I actually sit and watch this whole thing? And I remember I did.
Yeah.
Even though I rented it, because, like, I understand the commitment. You paid for a ticket. You're going to stay.
Yeah, like, I'm going to see this through to the bitter end.
I could have popped that thing out of the VCR at any moment, and I didn't. That's how committed I was. To, like, just sifting through and the thing is, they were all bad.
Yeah.
And so maybe that, like, kind of ruined my palate to an extent, where I couldn't say, no, I'm better than this movie. Because I'd watched, like, The Immortals with Joe Pantoliano and Love in a 45. Wretched fucking movie. Destiny Turns on the Radio.
These are some deep cuts.
Yeah,
they're all awful. So, like, maybe I was like, I don't deserve good things after watching that. I deserve Mad Dog Time.
Yeah.
This is what I have earned. No, it's kind of funny because it plays into a trope that Tim and I have joked about in our own conversations, where there are certain movies that we refer to as Tim movies.
Oh, yeah.
And they're kind of in the same wheelhouse as the ones you described, where it's like just like these garbage-ass independent movies that nobody else saw, but for some reason Tim went and saw them, like Black Dogs starring Meatloaf.
Yeah, well, I think it was Meatloaf and I want to say Patrick Swayze. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, he was a trucker.
Trucker movie, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've seen, like, that and, like, I think Wagons East, which I think was the penultimate John Candy movie.
Yep,
Yeah.
John Candy. Richard Lewis, also in that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and continuing the Wild West theme, Almost Heroes. Chris Farley's last movie.
Yeah.
And
Matthew Perry.
Yep. And Matthew Perry. And again, like, all these are sort of born out of this naivete. The same reason that, like, I saw Godzilla 2000, where I'm like, Hank Azaria, he's in The Simpsons, he's great. Vicki Lewis on News Radio. Ferris Bueller, that actor. And just like, yeah, these are all good reasons. I don't know who this Roland Emmerich director guy is, but whatever.
Well, and I think as cineasts,
Yeah.
as we all are,
Some kind of ass.
Mad Dog Time on a podcast 30 people listen to.
Right.
There's a point in one's cinema viewing life where you stop giving movies a chance because you're just too bitter. And, like, you reach that point, Matt, you talked about your palate being ruined. For me, like, I'm in the same boat where, like, I don't go to see anything because I've given so many things a chance and have been just fucking let down every time.
And I think that that's the thing that it's only through this horrible experience that after a while you realize you're like, oh wait, I don't have to finish watching this movie. Like, I can stop at any time.
And yet we did. We sat and watched this whole thing. And I waited. Now, as I alluded to you, Matt, Tim hit traffic in LA as he was coming here, and he said, well, you could start the movie without me. And I was like, hell no, I'm not watching this shit by myself.
Yeah, I got better things to do with my time. I could, like, stare at a wall, or I could take a nap.
Yeah, I could only imagine sitting through that entire thing with an incredulous friend co-watching it with me.
Well, yeah, part of it, too, is, you know, having already been there, and, like, you know, Ellen Barkin's doing the, like, you know, Nick, whatever, and, like, Jen is just like, oh, fuck off, or something like that. But
I already said that, like, 400 times.
Yeah, well, that's the point where, like, this isn't, like, 20 minutes in the movie, and I'm like, hang on, Jen, there's more of this. Like, it gets worse from here.
Brass balls!
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember last week when I was in New York, me and some friends watched one of the late era Seagal movies that's on Netflix.
Oh, wasn't Nick Mullen just talking about that on
Yeah, we watched A Good Man.
Oh.
Which is just, I mean, it's inept beyond description, but we had a great time watching it. And we've watched it, like we watched Stone Cold, Brian Bosworth's Star Turn with Lance Henriksen, which I watched as a kid.
Which one with Lance?
We watched. The Boz goes undercover in Lance Henriksen's outlaw motorcycle gang.
Oh wow!
And it ends with basically them becoming essentially ISIS in that they do a massive suicide attack on the Alabama state capitol and kill like literally everyone in the Alabama government.
Or?
It's actually a fascinatingly, hilariously terrible movie, and we have a fun time. And but I honestly think that if we tried to watch this, it would be stone silence for 20 minutes until somebody had the guts to say, we need to turn this off.
It's true, and like,
See, the only non-aliens Lance Henriksen movie that I know is Pumpkinhead, so I'm completely unaware of that other one.
Good.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
Stan Winston.
And again, like, going back to the fail son idea, and the idea of, like, someone just being handed all these resources on a platter and just utterly squandering them.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely. And right now, am I thinking, like, is there a better metaphor for America today? And like the way
we are all Larry Bishop. Absolutely. Yeah, we have squandered our patronage. There's no question. And like, and the thing that is most repulsive to me in so much of modern American discourse is just the entitlement of people. No, not like, oh, millennials are entitled, but like,
right.
Like just the regular assumption of, well, we deserve all this shit, and it's all shit, without any kind of effort or just as a birthright, and then just taking it for granted. And, like basically saying, like looking at a fucking Happy Meal toy and being like, yes, it's okay to me that the world will be drowned in seawater because we made these, like I have a little, Emperor's New Groove,
like
squeeze toy.
Yeah.
And we're fine with that. And it's that sort of just like mindless, just of taking for granted. And that's what Larry Bishop did. He was just like, I mean, I'm obviously brilliant. All of my dickhead sycophant friends read my terrible script and told me it was good. My dad's friends said it was good. So I'm going to make the movie.
It's sort of like the idea that, like, I celebrate the system that's put me at the top of it. It's like, well, I've ended up here purely as a consequence of birth, but I must deserve the position that I've been given or that I've earned.
Oh yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah, just that. Oh yeah, people need to work hard, just like I did by virtue of being the son of somebody with a lot of money. Like all of my, like my dickhead like libertarian cousins who literally work for their dad's company. Talk to me about the need for self-reliance and how people are too lazy and all that.
Yeah, it's nice when you have every resource and opportunity at your beck and call.
And then we have collectively used it to make Mad Dog Time. We are literally living in Mad Dog Time right now. The Trump administration is Mad Dog Time.
Hey,
so buckle up.
I hear Trump's getting out tomorrow.
He's going to come out in the medical robe,
yeah,
with the straitjacket over his shoulder.
Yeah, just all disheveled.
Like does.
Mick, Nick, Vic, they're all terrible. Sad.
These guys,
sad.
They're no good. They're no good. Melania, what have you been doing behind my back?
And keep in mind that this movie came out, flopped horribly,
yes.
Was liked by no one.
Yeah, just sank without a trace.
But then, and we can blame Quentin Tarantino completely for this one. After this movie made literally $40,000 or something like that on an $8 million budget,
of which I'm a party.
With that cast, he was never heard from again until in 2004 he was brought in to play a small part in Kill Bill 2. I don't know if you guys remember the scene in Kill Bill 2 that everyone who sees it says, "What is this and why is it in here?" when Michael Madsen goes to the strip club and the strip club owner gives him a hassle about how he's late, and then sends him home. That's Larry Bishop. The guy who goes,
God, it's like
the guy who goes, "You're telling me about his useful as an asshole right here?" That's him.
It really is the linchpin of Kill Bill 2.
Larry Bishop has like a special superpower. Like he sprinkles fairy dust and like completely inexplicable, pointless movie scenes spring up out of the earth.
It's kind of like the in Labyrinth, those like fiery guys that can pull themselves apart.
Oh yeah, like they start pulling off their heads and you're like, what? Like, okay, why is this in the movie?
Yeah. It's like
this is not moving the plot at all.
It's nice that the story stopped for 5 minutes while we could just goof off.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about it is, I've often watched that scene and thought, what the fuck is this? And it's sort of, I think I've come to the conclusion that it's the first of Tarantino's, because there's really is a divide in his career that like you can mark from the two Kill Bills, where he is much more interested in subverting audience expectations and like basically fucking with people who are watching his movie and what they want to see, and prolonging suspense beyond any reasonable tension point. And I think this is his first attempt at that. This totally pointless scene with this absolute just asshole. This like just
this asshole right here.
Shit, who never like if he'd gotten his head cut off at the end of that scene, then there would like be the catharsis of him. But no, he's just a prick for 10 minutes. Feels like an hour, and then he's never in the movie again. And like, I think the point of that scene is him like, because at that point you know that the bride is coming for Michael Madsen, and you're waiting for that confrontation. But no, before you get to that, you have to watch Larry Bishop ham it up in this strip club for an hour and a half. So he literally put him in there to be an annoyance to the audience.
Joke's on you. You thought you were going to be entertained.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think, and Tarantino, like his movies post, everyone's like since Kill Bill 2 have had more of those moments in them and those scenes in them, designed to be like, is it really going to be that? What are we doing here? Before something like explodes. And I think this was his first attempt at that. So he literally put Larry Bishop in this movie to be an annoying waste of time.
It's what he's good at. So
Quentin has moved on from feet to wasting the audience's time. That's his job now.
and then, but then the disaster of it is, it's like if it was just that scene, it'd be one thing. But after that movie, he was in that movie. He collaborated. He told Tarantino, "I got another idea for a movie."
Vic's going back in.
Yeah,
the old switcheroo.
I want to do a motorcycle movie.
Oh, because wasn't this how he kind of got his start? Was doing biker pictures?
Exactly. Yeah, and of course, because Tarantino is this totally obsessed cinephile with just this incredible, intense fetish for Hollywood history, which is of course presumably why he would put up with being around Larry Bishop for more than 5 minutes in the first place.
But it's barely Hollywood history. Like, these are like worthless garbage movies that
but that's the thing about Tarantino. He makes no distinctions.
Yes.
Like, he is just omnivorous consumer of all of it, and he does not differentiate. So
He's
for
like
him,
a trash Scorsese, basically.
Exactly. So like all of that shit to him, it's on the same level as like The Wild Ones or any other classic film.
Well,
so he's like, do it, make the movie, and I'll produce it. And then he did.
And we got another garbage movie out of it.
Yeah,
and it's called Hell Ride.
Yeah, we briefly talked about it, and you said it was also garbage.
It's so fucking bad. It's so bad. It's slightly more dynamic because every scene isn't literally people sitting in a room talking to each other and then one shitting at another. Like, they'll be in a bar, or they'll be in a different bar, or sometimes they'll be riding the motorcycles. So like that just by itself is more dynamic than anything in Mad Dog Time.
So not just a low-key lit soundstage.
It is somehow maybe even more incomprehensible plot-wise. Because the film starts with Larry Bishop on the ground in the desert with an arrow in his body. Mm-hmm. And a woman like saying, "Oh, you're fucked up." And then she like squats on his face to pull it out.
That's how you start a movie.
Then it cuts and it says 32 years earlier. And there's a kid riding a tricycle or something, and he watches his mom get set on fire and killed.
Holy fuck.
Then it cuts back and says 32 years later, but not back to him with the arrow, to another guy getting burned alive.
It's funny how, it's like poetry.
Then they cut back to Larry Bishop after that, but it's at a different point, presumably before the arrow.
Not quite 32 years later.
Wait, so he expanded on what he does at the beginning of Mad Dog Time, where for some reason it says at the beginning of the film, many years later. It's like many years after the credits?
Many years after the creation of the universe.
Exactly. Yes. And so this movie bounces back. It's back and forth flashbacks from 90s, and they never go back to the point before the flashback, so you have no idea where anything is. They bring characters in, and they immediately die, just like in this one. You have no idea who anyone is.
It's some like Gianandalou bullshit. Where it's like, 8 years later, 16 years earlier. It's all right, sure.
And what makes it horrifying, though, is that if the first one, Larry got to enjoy his fetish for guys with guns on desks and hobnobbing with A-list celebrities, in this one, he's literally just he's with a naked woman in every scene, basically. And he's this like 60-year-old gross dude with like black hair that is either a horrible dye job or a wig. I'm betting wig, and like a fucking soul patch glued underneath his lip, and just like this like leathery skin.
He gets his hair done the same place as Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, with these naked women like writhing on top of him. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, and in Mad Dog Time, he gave himself a part where he would get to make out with Angie Everhart for no reason.
Yeah, right. There's a scene where he's just making out with Angie Everhart out of nowhere. She has no lines, I don't think, in the whole movie. It's just, hey, I'm going to make out with Angie Everhart. Hey.
Yeah, she's basically, strong roles for women. She's basically the hostess of the movie. Because she, conducts Goldblum into a basement and, makes out with Larry Bishop, and that's it.
Yeah, she's like a very welcoming TGIF hostess. Yeah, it's like, hey, and then my character, who isn't related to anyone else and is just some hired gun, he's making out with a dame.
Because that's what they did back then. They made out with the dames, and the dames loved it.
If there was a juicy dish, you went in for a kiss. That's what you did.
Dames never said no back then. It was a great time.
Yep. But this one, he pushes it way farther, and it's way grosser. Just him rolling around with these women who, I pray were medicated. Because I don't know how they could handle the trauma of that memory of this guy. Because he's like a slab of leather. He's like a jerky man.
Yeah, and the thing is that because when he shows up in Mad Dog Time, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with his face?
Yeah,
So
well, that was the thing I remember because I recognized all the actors with the exception of, the auteur. But I just remember there's this one really ugly guy.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that
okay.
turned out to be the director.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, that's the guy.
that's why he was making out with Angie Everhart. I get it now.
Everything makes
But, like-
sense, and yet it doesn't.
Yeah, because he really does look like a melted candle with sunglasses on it.
Yeah, and it's even worse in this one because, as I said, he like has all these things to try to make himself look more vital, like the wig and the soul patch, and he's wearing like a motorcycle cut, which I mean is even worse in its own way than like the stupid suit. It's like, dude, you're not a motorcycle guy.
Oh, dude, and I swear to fucking God, there's a part in Mad Dog Time where he looks like he's wearing wedges to make him look taller. Because I looked at
Why not go
the
like
angle
the whole
of the
hog?
top of his foot. I'm like, he's wearing fucking high heels. What the fuck?
It's like, yeah,
I guarantee you he was. That's like that old school Hollywood vanity, you know?
Yeah.
Like the hair pieces and the wedges. Like nowadays, like I guess they're too self-conscious around. Like Tom Cruise is like 3 feet tall, but he just sort of like, okay, well, force perspective, and I'm not going to
put him on a couple apple boxes.
Yeah, every Tom Cruise movie is Darby O'Gill and the Little People, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I don't think he would not wear high heels.
No.
I think that would be beyond the pale, especially since he runs so much.
He might have worn heels before he divested himself of all his body thetans, but not now.
Yeah. And then even though this isn't as high profile as Mad Dog Time was, I don't know if he even got a theatrical release. He's still able to pull in some, I guess, former A-list cameos. Dennis Hopper shows up and rides a motorcycle for a while, which evokes everyone's favorite motorcycle classic. And then there's a really awkward, in retrospect, cameo. There's a one-scene cameo with David Carradine that ends with him being strangled to death.
Oddly prescient, the script.
Yeah, I watched that, and I did the Carson collar.
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Carradine asked them to write that in.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Carradine could have been doing that Carson collar.
Could someone choke me maybe a little bit? Just a little choke. Just give me a little choke, please.
He did that in lieu of pay. He's like, okay, I'll be in your movie. You don't have to pay me, but I get a choking scene. Okay.
He's got a choking rider.
Yeah, it's like access to the craft service table, or you choke me in the movie.
Till I'm blue, none of this half-ass bullshit.
Now, the important thing to remember, kids, is risk-aware consensual kink.
Yes.
Let's learn from David's non-example.
Yeah, you need a spotter for these kinds of things.
Exactly. Breath play is never safe, children. Take it from David Carradine.
Oh, but it is fun. It's just such a high.
It's the best.
I recommend everyone listening try it.
That's why my next film is literally going to be all choking scenes. But yeah, like this movie, just looking it up on IMDb, there's some choice quotes on the quotes page.
Those are bad choices, I can tell you that.
Well, it begs the question of why this was chosen as a memorable quote, because the quote is, "Now give me a hand with this, because I got things to go and places to do."
Right.
Yeah, like that's the level. Like that's like a dad joke. That's like barely a joke. That's like meat to please ya or something like that.
Well, this
It's
is pretty.
just
It does sound
terrible.
like this movie is someone's dad, like making a movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, there was no stone unturned in sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel of wordplay, to mix my metaphors. Hell, you should put that in the movie. That's an atrocious sentence
That's good.
construction.
We'll
Yeah.
use it.
The only good line having anything to do with this movie is not in the film. It was about the film. It was in Roger Ebert's review, where he said that the film itself should be cut up into ukulele picks for the poor. He also said it was the only film he'd ever seen where it would have been preferable to watch a blank screen for the same amount of time that the movie lasted.
I would tend to agree with
I
him.
can
Yeah.
dig it. Like I could have been staring at my dog's asshole instead of watching this for an hour and a half. But yeah, like and
I mean, at least you'd have time for your mind to wander rather than it just like turning itself into knots, going like, when is this story going to start making sense?
Yeah,
when are these scenes going to start to gel?
Yeah, the mind wants to make sense of things. The human mind wants to find patterns.
Unless you're...
This movie is like a perfect glassy surface that the brain just slides off of again and again. It's like, what are these characters' motivations? What are their relations to each other?
Why is Vic so intimidating?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of, Matt, have you ever seen Cotton Club?
No.
I need to do Cotton Club for a future episode because it's a very fascinating movie. But it's a piss poor Coppola film from the 80s, starring Richard Gere as a suave trigger man, Diane Lane as the gangster's mole, and half the movie is Richard Gere. He works for Dutch Schultz, the Dutch Schultz.
I've heard of him.
A very intimidating gentleman, my understanding. And Richard Gere spends the whole movie just cucking his boss with Diane Lane. Like, he's literally fucking his boss's mole, like, right under his nose, and, like, just doesn't even make secret out of it. And then his boss just kind of seethes with anger and then doesn't do anything about it. And this movie is kind of the same thing.
He's
it's like
paralyzed with rage.
Yeah, it's like the whole, like, Paul Anka scene where I'm like, why is he doing this, and why is Richard Dreyfuss letting him do it?
Yeah, it's like, who gave Gabriel Byrne a mic if he knows that he's just going to do this?
I mean, talking about how it resists analysis and any kind of sense, it really makes you think that, like, it could be avant-garde.
That's being very generous.
If there was any sort of competence or visually interesting information on screen.
Well, he did those fades that were like, you'd fade to a pastel color.
I feel like maybe there was an effort to save this movie in the editing room. And that was like that was one of their like
editing room
attempts to make it look like there was something cohesive going on. Tim did point out that, as he put it, this is kind of like a retarded David Lynch film.
That's actually a good, because it's like, you could squint at it and think that all of the weird, flat, affectless dialogue recitation and sort of and people in lines that like don't mesh up into an actual conversation, you could like kind of squint and see that as intentional.
Yeah.
And Lynchian.
And then there's some weird sound design things going on where it's that, like in a Lynch film, you'll have that weird like undercurrent of ambient sound.
Yeah.
Which might be coming from the blood rushing in your ears, or who knows where it's coming from, that gives you this feeling of unease. Like, it seems to be in this movie, but to no actual end.
Yeah, and other things too, like even like, well, what caused the the light bulb to go off for me is that you had Diane Lane and Ellen Barkin, like the blonde and the brunette, like that's a classic Lynch trope.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like he likes his kind of ice queen and his fiery one.
This movie's just like Mulholland Drive.
It totally is.
Had a stroke.
Yeah. And also other things too, like Henry Silva just being kind of like this menacing, shadowy guy that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And like the color palette where it's got like these kind of like flesh-colored walls and everything, like all it's claustrophobic, low-key lighting.
Also Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, Richard Pryor for no reason.
Oh my god.
Just like Lost Highway. Oh my god.
Yeah.
This is a fucking failed Lynch movie.
Yeah, so...
Poor Richard Pryor, like, and I know this was at a time when he was, I don't know, he wasn't well for a very long time before his death, and, like, he really looks at, and he's in the movie.
He's in basically like an insert.
Yeah, it's an insert shot of him sitting next to an elevator.
Yeah, and he opens a door and that's all you see of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like there are these kind of like retarded Lynchian undertones to it.
I hope the half day he spent on the set to do this pile, like at least paid for like a day of his like in-home care.
Some palliative care out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Some hospice.
It's so depressing. It's just, and then Rob Reiner driving a car.
I completely forgot.
Reiner actually, he's one of those guys. He actually has he does a decent job.
Well, he's Rob Reiner,
so you know. Give the best performance. The non-actor might have the best performance in the movie.
Yeah,
where he's just the jovial driver for a minute.
Marty DeBurgi.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with anything, but yeah, if he's going to drive into the electric banana.
Well, Well, nothing in this movie has anything to do with anything.
There's that.
Like, which is why it has kind of evaded our attempts to explicate it or put it in a context beyond.
It's just a shitty 90s Tarantino knockoff.
Yeah, Tarantino knockoff, and the larger context of Hollywood fail sons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think of like contemporary fail sons. Your Breck Eisners.
Yes, which I looked up and I'm like, I fucking hate this prick so much, and I've never even seen Sahara. I don't need to.
Yeah, and like obviously Max Landis.
Oh yeah,
yes.
He's kind of the
quintessential. Ended up on third base, thought he hit a triple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Son.
But you know what? You watch this movie and all of their like crap looks a lot better. And you're like, these guys have an unfair place in Hollywood, but they can still put out, middle of the road crap that frankly, if you give somebody else that job and make that movie, it's going to probably look about the same,
Yeah.
like a low budget remake of The Crazies. It's going to look the same, like the fucking Frankenstein movie. Whoever writes that, it's probably going to be the same movie.
Yeah.
But
a basic
Bishop,
level of confidence.
Even more star power than any of those guys have gotten, and made just a festering, just radioactive shit
that utterly irredeemable.
That like isn't a movie by most definitions of the term. Like it's like orthogonal to filmmaking, and like that is that puts him above all the contemporary fail sons.
That's true, because, And
talking about the film itself, too, like, I noticed how conspicuous it was, in that there was one external scene in daylight. Everything else is, like, on some dimly lit soundstage.
Yeah.
It's that one just establishing shot of Jeff Goldblum walking down the stairs and into a door. The only scene that takes place outside on something other than a soundstage.
Which begs the question of why that was necessary.
It's
very anomalousness would seem to indicate that it means something, but I fucking doubt it. I fucking doubt it.
If you can dumb yourself down a couple orders of magnitude, I'm sure that it'll be interesting, and that you'll be like, this means something. Beyond just going like, oh, this is supposed to mean something.
Well, you know what my philosophy is, Tim?
What?
To hell with goddamn everything.
Oh, you're so deep.
I'm gonna write a screenplay.
I'm gonna dust off my Ketchup Factor screenplay.
Yeah, I'm dying to learn what the ketchup factor is.
I forgot what it was.
Is it like zero effect or?
Like, it's like a pet theory of the character about like what foods are gross in the morning or something, and it has to do with like whether or not you could put ketchup on them. I don't really remember. It was stupid. It was terrible, but it was still
makes a kind of sense.
Because it was still better than Bad Dog Time.
Next Chapo reading series, The Ketchup Factor.
I can find it, man. I mean, I have some of my terrible writing from my teen years, but not that one. That one never made the transfer to like a hard copy that I could save, sadly.
I mean, I did throw the first screenplay I wrote the fuck away. It had my name on it, and I was like, there's no way I'm letting anybody see this.
Well, I was fortunate as a playwright to have my my AIDS awareness one act be actually performed, so...
At UCLA?
No, this is in high school.
Oh. It was not at the Frood Playhouse?
No, everything else after that was all downhill.
Well, we can only hope that Larry Bishop will continue to fail upward as he ages.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get an announcement that he's going to direct the next Star Wars movie. That would really be amazing to me.
Just the star power alone.
A Marvel tentpole.
It would still be better than Phantom Menace.
Boo! You know it would. He's got a similar everyone sit down style of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's similarly inert. Like characters' motivations don't make sense.
Yeah,
nothing really builds on anything that came before it.
Wow. So
and like would probably be R-rated with a lot of gratuitous nudity. like a lot of space nymphs rubbing their breasts in the face of a weirdly leathery old Jedi you've never seen before.
With leather gloves, and and like,
yes.
And
yeah.
Oh yeah, the leather gloves. Like they were fingerless, right?
They were fingerless gloves, yeah.
Fingerless leather gloves
Oh
on.
man, what a cool fucking guy.
I bet he was on the ground floor of Bitcoin.
I gotta look cool. Nothing cooler than fingerless leather gloves. While wearing a suit, forget about it.
I wonder if he wore the lifts because he was directing a movie with Jeff Goldblum, who's like 6'4".
That might, yeah. I bet whenever he's in a movie, it like causes a slight like crisis of confidence for any of his male co-stars. As we all know, all actors basically, except for Liam Neeson and Jeff Goldblum, are like 3 feet tall. So when he comes in, they must just be like, "Oh boy."
Like, can we get a chair for this guy or something?
Yeah.
Like,
could he be sitting in this scene? Can we block it so he's sitting?
and yeah, if you think about it, Goldblum is sitting in all those scenes. He's sitting at a desk.
True.
He's sitting at a couch. He's sitting
never
in a
not
booth.
sitting. Maybe that was why.
Wow.
Yeah, we might have cracked the case.
Yeah, we're unlocking the secrets of the mystery of Mad Dog time. It's going to become a very sane dog any moment now.
I look forward to the Taschen coffee table book about Mad Dog Time that we will be writing. I would like to enlist Matt to write the foreword, which expands upon Tarantino knockoff films.
I did so much fucking research to write about that. I would actually love to. I watched all of them.
That's a book unto itself.
All terrible.
That
it was like 50. It's like 100 hours of my childhood gone. not just watching shitty movies, but like, what could I have been? What formative experiences artistically was I missing? Because I was watching Love in a 45 with fucking Gil Bellows.
This is like it's like the end of that Mr. Show sketch where Bob and David are those guys who like get mad at each other in a bar.
Yeah.
And they end up getting married to like draw out the conflict, and then in the end like David dies and Bob just goes, "My life."
I watched so many shittily staged Mexican standoffs.
Yeah, there's and there are movies like that. I wouldn't say they're having a renaissance. I think that because we're so in love with garbage culture, this podcast.
There's no shortage of it. Yeah.
These movies are sort of being rediscovered. Like I know they've done a couple on Red Letter Media. There was High Voltage with Antonio Sabato Jr., which is basically just like
Sabato is shoe, right? Spanish.
Yeah, where it's basically like a Z-grade like John Woo ripoff.
Oh yeah.
And then there's one which specifically ties into Tarantino ripoffs, which is a movie called The Item.
Oh yeah, I remember them talking about The Item.
Yeah. Which I guess he
That's
took
just
the,
jaw dropping.
Yeah, I guess he took the Kiss Me Deadly Pulp Fiction like glowing suitcase and just like ran with that. It's like a weird little worm alien in a case that makes everybody like go nuts. Because
the briefcase is the thing from Pulp Fiction that needed expanding on.
Yeah.
Like, this is the expanded universe Pulp Fiction. And oh my god, now I put that idea out there.
No, yeah, that's gonna happen.
I'll cut it.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen. Some coked up executive is gonna be like, okay, Pulp Fiction prequel. How did they get the box and what's in the bag?
Yeah,
what's in the briefcase? How did they get in there? And the last scene is like them going to Big Kahuna Burger. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, I know what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
Because
I feel so
don't we all love
comforted.
that? Isn't that our favorite thing to see in a film when you're told a tale where the ending is totally meaningless because you know what's going to happen? Isn't that great, that new thing that they do?
That's a thing.
Where they fill in all the spots with this just shit that by its very nature can have no dramatic weight to it because the ending is determined.
I love stories where the climax is a foregone conclusion. Those are the most compelling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where instead of any kind of emotional catharsis, you just turn into it's the burger they eat when they get killed.
it's that thing I recognize. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's and that also
like garçon means boy. Why does that waitress know that? Like, what's her story?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're like driving to Big Kahuna Burger, and they cut to her, and she's on a bus, and she's reading a French to English dictionary.
Because she had dreams of visiting Paris. And
yeah, exactly. She's got like a Fodor's Paris guide, and then a phrase book, and you're like, now I get it.
Yeah.
And then in the sequel to Pulp Fiction, that has a scene in Paris, you can see her like walking around with a baguette by the Eiffel Tower.
But it's like Inglourious Bastards Paris. It's like, because it's an alternate reality.
She's in Vichy, France or some shit. I don't know. Yeah, and like it kind of and I don't know if we're just getting like dumber as a society, or if we're just already stupid. Is that kind of like going back to the suitcase thing, and the things that people invest with particular import in a film, but to like an absurd degree, where it's like the spinning.
That drove me nuts.
Inception,
yeah,
where it's like, wait, what happened?
They're
to
like,
the top?
Clearly it's going to fall because he's in a dream, and the other people are like, clearly it won't because he's not, and it's like, it's supposed to be ambiguous, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, and my reaction is just like, I literally don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Like,
I've always hated like Star Wars Expanded Universe, any of that shit, like where people are answering questions that don't need answers.
Yeah, it's by its design, there's not supposed to be a definitive answer. That's the joke.
Yeah, so, but it actually would not surprise me if we see Pulp Fiction, the prequel, on Netflix, like, next year.
I think its time has come.
Wait, this is going to happen because Matt's bringing some of that Chapo juju where you guys bend reality and, like, horrible shit happens.
Yeah,
why
I
do you
really
do
should
that?
stop talking about all of this.
Yeah,
I'm all making it inevitable. The lathe of heaven is spinning up.
Well, how do we want to... we should probably put a bullet in Mad Dog Time. Is there anything that we want to say to sum up?
Well, it should all be alliterative, and we should be sitting behind a desk before we do it.
I am at a desk right now. Get my gun.
Okay. It's really tough to come up with alliteration off the top of your head.
See, that's why he's a genius, folks.
Yeah, oh, I know.
That's where Larry Bishop, that's where this talent really shines.
He's some kind of alliterative savant, I guess, where, like, that's his only talent is, like, rhyming.
No, that's called doing a second draft.
Well, okay, so if Larry... There was another guy in the movie who gave his life philosophy. It's a little guy named Burt Reynolds, who looked like he had just stepped out of an oven after basting for about 4 hours at 350
put in his
degrees.
second set of false teeth.
Put in his teeth and then walked onto the set.
Whose motto was, fuck it.
That seems like the motto of anyone walking out of Mad Dog Time at the end of 100 minutes. Just
so I think that's the only response really at the end that we can have.
Yeah.
To that experience of watching that, of using the precious, precious minutes of our lives to watch that is fuck it.
I agree. To hell with goddamn everything.
To hell with goddamn everything.
Matt, thanks for coming on. We
yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was great.